What's going on, everyone? So we are back again today with some new set 4 cards that I cannot wait for. And we are diving into some massive space swarming with the brand new VADER leader. Before we do, a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. And also I have a TCG player link in the description down below. Let's dive into this new VADER deck. And, well, it's pretty sweet. We've got the brand new VADER. He's all about those vehicle tokens or vehicles and then creating tokens based on those vehicles attacking. Anytime you're able to get in an attack with a non-token vehicle, we can go ahead and use that action to create another TIE Fighter token. This really gets out of hand very quickly. Honestly, his flip side isn't nearly as relevant. You can flip him for 6 resources, a 5/6 just straight up unit and get in damage, or for +5/+5 on one of your units and create a couple TIE Fighter tokens. To be honest, we are kind of all in on this early game, dumping in a bunch of units ideally, and then just snowballing out of control with the Tarkin Town early game pressure alongside the massive swarming of space units. Now, one of the best things about this list are actually the 2 pilots. These 1-cost pilots really ramp up the strength of this deck. Giving the +1/+1 stat is totally fine, but it's essentially +2/+2 in terms of stat line. The Victor 2 is going to create a TIE Fighter token, so a separate body, and the Victor 3 is going to give an experience token to a separate body, both of which work perfectly with Darth Vader as a leader. Now, we also have a bunch of other kind of just general space units, the stuff you're used to seeing: Silencer, Mercenary Gunship, your Vanguards, you've got your TIE Advance, your Interceptors, or Ruthless Raiders. But in terms of new space units, we've got the First Order TIE Fighter, which pairs really nicely with TIE Fighter on turn 1. We've got things like the Kijimi Patrollers, the Spatial Forces TIE Fighter. We've got the new Victor Leader to pump up all of our space units. And then we are filling in the slots with a few strong removal options / upgrades. We've got Overwhelming Barrage, which can completely wipe out a board, especially when we're pumping it up with potentially experience tokens, pilots, and the Victor Leader. But also we have Daring Raid to work really well with our 1-drops and Tarkin Town. Ruthlessness, this is really nice with some of our tokens. You can go ahead and just slap this on for essentially +2/+0 for a token. Don't necessarily have to kill a unit, just place it on a token and your tokens suddenly become extremely oppressive. And then Rich Ward. This was a little bit interesting. I was trying to figure out what to fit in this last slot, and I've really found that there wasn't a crazy amount of strong early game space units like there are on Heroism. Otherwise, I probably would have gone with another space unit. But also, it does work well and benefits sort of the idea of the VADER deck, which is you do actually want to go ahead and use your Tarkin Town early. If you could slap a rich reward on the Tarkin Town to target, get some experience tokens for multiple of your space units that are, well, generated, suddenly you've got a lot more power and it can actually be pretty strong. So something that I've actually gotten a little bit more impressive than I thought, but of course we're going to dive into more of that. And I do think this is one of those decks that isn't quite complete. I think that there are a few cards in here that definitely could be replaced. Things like the Disabling Fang Fighter, potentially the Rich Reward, the TIE Advanced, because there's actually not an insane amount of Imperial units. I think all of those could definitely be looked at. Ruthlessness even. I think there's a lot of improvement for this deck, but we're going to be swarming and we're going to see what we can do with a VADER. What better way to start it than running up against an opposing old VADER? Unfortunately for us, we've got probably one of the worst hands I've ever seen with this deck. And I am not kidding here. In the deck, we have 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 16, 19 different turn 1 space units. And we have mulligan into a hand after not having an initial play, into a hand with just a 3/2 ground unit. And that's what we find ourselves at. So really quite terrible, honestly. Like, this is probably one of the worst hands I have ever seen in the VADER deck. Now let's look at our opponents going with the space strategy. And if we had a turn 1 space unit, this would be over. It would be over. And because we would be able to generate a ton of TIE fighter tokens, which would be able to deal with these TIE fighters and things like that. But unfortunately for us, we do not find ourselves in that position. Now, we did end up picking up the Kajimi Patrollers, which is a really solid one in this spot. We're going to be able to generate 2 space bodies, and they use Turkentown on our ground unit, which I think is a totally reasonable thing to be doing. But, you know, not exactly all that impressive. Let's go ahead and just claim initiative. I don't really see a reason to go ahead and pilot because, oh, my opponent's actually not going to kill off my my Kajimi Patrollers, which I'm a little bit surprised about. Here, we will just go ahead and kill their TIE fighter to generate another TIE fighter token, which is going to be really nice. We'll see if they go into space here. They don't necessarily look like they're going to, so let's go ahead and go TIE fighter attack in. Create another TIE fighter token. And they have the IG-2000, which is pretty good against us, but we do have that Imperial Interceptor to go ahead and deal with that with the Tarkentown, which is going to be pretty nice. It's one of the reasons why I waited on that. We'll just go ahead and finish that off, create a TIE fighter token, and then we'll pass. Got ourselves multiple Victor 3s. Unfortunately, we've drawn all 3 of them. I'm going to go ahead and keep this Victor leader around because I think it is very possible that we want to go ahead and deploy that this turn. Alongside the Dengar, that can get really oppressive very quickly. A second IG-2000. It looks like our opponent's deck is just built to go ahead and deal with our deck, which is kind of funny. This is +1/+2. I think what we'll do is just get in. I think we'll play the Victor leader here to go ahead and avoid any sort of damage into this Imperial Interceptor. Force throw, huh? Okay, not exactly all that scary. Oh, wait, they have the 5th brother. Well, that's just horrible, actually. What a hand, actually, from our opponent. That is crazy absurd. Yeah, our opponent just had the hand for us, actually. I didn't even realize that they had the 5th brother there. So that was a definite mistake from my part. But our opponent just absolutely crushing us in terms of we had no turn 1 unit. They ended up having the absolutely insane play that is our opponent just, well, going about force throwing the 5th brother, having multiple IGs to deal with our space units. We could deploy as a ground unit with this Darth Vader. It's not like it's incredibly strong, but we don't really have many other options. Our opponent's just going to be able to kill us, really. There's nothing really that we can do. It's GG. And we will concede. Pretty strong there. I should have known that the force throw would have actually hit one of our units, but I think we would have lost 1 unit either way, the TIE Interceptor regardless, because it's only 2 damage. So that was just a really strong draw for my opponent. And the double IG-2000 coupled with the fact that we had no turn 1 space unit. Ooh, that was a nightmare. Now, they could have Tarkentown our true drop, but of course, we could have had a double 1-drop or the Kajimi Patroller or something like that. That could have generated 2 bodies, which would have been pretty reasonable as well. Got ourselves a pretty interesting match. We've got the Wedge Gamer over there, which is going to be pretty fun. I'm actually going to resource 2 of these pilots because we're going to go with the TIE Fighter plus the Wingman Victor 2, which is going to generate a solid amount of value here by creating a TIE Fighter token, as well as getting that TIE Fighter body onto the battlefield. And then we're going to have the Disabling Fang Fighter for ideally some sort of pilot they're going to be playing in this Wedge deck. That is going to be extremely common. Rich Reward actually looking pretty decent here because we can go ahead and play that. Although I maybe should have thought about that before I resourced. Let's see here. Okay, I think what we will do is simply get in some damage into their base. And we'll see what my opponent wants to do. This is going to guarantee us the ability to... Ooh, what do they got? The Neon Numb. Okay. That is a hefty unit. I'm not going to lie, guys. That is pretty large. We're going to go Disabling Fang Fighter, hit off that Neon, just defeat it. And my opponent can go ahead and attack into the base for 5. They're going to hit the TIE Fighter. Ooh, I don't know about that one. They're going to get all of their units removed here with the Tarkentown. And then we get to create a TIE Fighter token. I'm not a huge fan of that play from our opponent here. I think they could have gone with just an attack to the base and then forced us to do something. Especially when you're playing the Wedge Red deck. it is all about that aggression for the most part. Let's go Victor Leader here. And then let's see if they have some sort of units to play. Yep, they got the Biggs Darklighter. That's totally fine. We're going to go Rich Reward on this Red 5, and we're going to actually get rid of it. We're going to go Disabling Fang Fighter into this. We're going to create a TIE Fighter, kill the Red 5, claim that, double experience up, and we're going to pass. Our opponent is playing a deck where if we're just able to deal with a lot of their space units, a lot of their cards are dead cards because they're going to be pilots, right? And we have the ability to contend in space because of that Tarkin Town, which is really, really quite strong. They've got a blue leader, which they can absolutely go ahead and ambush, but that doesn't really do anything. They can go ahead and do exactly what they did, but that's also not exactly very strong. They can go ahead and deploy Wedge this turn, which is totally fine. Let's go ahead and play this unit as a pilot onto the Victor Leader. Get in for some damage. Get in for some more damage. Play out Imperial Interceptor. Create a TIE Fighter, and then we'll pass. Got ourselves a couple of interesting ones here. Another TIE Interceptor, but we're really just going to be playing out this Vader on one of our units and just probably ending the game on this turn, right? Vet Wedge coming down. We are at 5 damage on our base. We have multiple space units to deploy Vader onto, multiple units that can create another token should we need it. Obviously, if they deal with our Victor Leader, then that could be pretty nice for them, but I mean, that does basically nothing, right? We're going to get in with that Victor Leader, deploy Vader, and that's going to be game over. They can do whatever here, but we've completely kind of annihilated this game. We're going to go ahead and deploy Vader on one of the tokens, get in for 7 points of damage, and then get in for the last 4, and it wasn't necessarily close. Our opponent didn't get to utilize the Tarkin Town, and we just took control of the space arena. It's one of the things with Blue Leader, like, yes, it could have came out and ambushed, but also you can't actually go ahead and get it to 5 power and then ambush in the space. You can make it so that it can ambush in the ground as a 5/5, but it can't ambush as a space in a 5/5 because once you go ahead and pay 2, it moves into the ground arena. So pretty strong showing there. Into our next matchup, we've got ourselves a match up against our friend on the opposing battle side, the Luke Skywalker, the father-son battle. Alliance Dispatcher on turn 1 coming down. Our opponent starting off with a pretty strong start. That's one of the cards that you're really looking for in the Luke Skywalker deck. Here we've got the TIE Vanguard, probably going to be dropping that and getting in damage, or we could go with the TIE Silencer. I think actually, now that I think about it, I just want to get in for some damage because I want to guarantee that we're going to be able to create a unit with Darth Vader. And what is that? What is this locked? I honestly could not tell you. Okay, let's see. They can give an experience token to a unit essentially. So let's just go with the TIE Silencer. And then let's go ahead and claim initiative, I think. Actually, no, we're going to need to have the Darth Vader create a token for us. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Victor Leader was a pretty solid draw. Ruthlessness, probably going to be the resource here. I was trying to figure out what the heck this... I think this means that it's not currently working right now. I think that's what that means on Carabas, but we'll find out together. I suppose. Definitely an interesting one for my opponent. I didn't expect the Sabine's Masterpiece to come down. Alliance Dispatcher, what do you got for us? Home 1. Wow. That is a pretty crazy curve. I'm not going to lie, guys. Not going to lie. Let's go ahead and they're going to have another experience token potentially to give out. We can go ahead and get this Victor Leader down. We could also, I suppose, play this unit as a pilot, pumping up the special forces. Let's see if they decide to go with the experience token. Sure, let's go ahead and get in and attack. See how they want to divvy up the damage. They probably just take all the indirect damage here. Give a shield token out. We can go ahead and hit in with a TIE Fighter. We can go ahead and Tarkin Town away the home 1. play out the TIE Vanguard, create a TIE Fighter, and then pass. They should have gotten an experience token over on something here, I believe, if I remember exactly what was happening there. They've got a Chewbacca, huh? Okay. That's pretty okay. Let's go ahead and just get in some damage here. Going to get in that attack. The experience token would have been decent for sure from them, because they would have had the extra experience token, which would have required another attack from our TIE Fighter. Yeah, that's fine. We can go ahead and just... Actually, hold on. We're going to create a TIE Fighter token here. They've got Maz Kanata. Okay. Let's go ahead and just drop in a pilot on this TIE Fighter. We're going to go kill that Sabine, get a couple of experience tokens, drop in the Victor Leader and pass. Another rich reward, another Kajimi Patrollers, or rather our first one. I think if our opponent, if they had that experience token, it depends on where they dropped it, right? My guess is that they would put it on Bright Hope based on what they were saying. They've got a Luke Skywalker here, which can go ahead and kill one of the tokens, which is decent, but I mean, not incredibly crazy. We can go ahead and pilot onto the Victor Leader here with that Darth Vader, get in for a good chunk of damage with that Darth Vader, get in for another chunk, play out the Kajimi Patrollers, and I mean, look at that space arena. My gosh, is that looking pretty crazy. Let's go ahead and get down this TIE Vanguard. But I think they would have been in a significantly better position, and I think they would have had a chance to actually go ahead and close out this game. We're going to go give Overwhelming Barrage to our Darth Vader, and then actually go ahead and kill off these two. So 7 damage to Luke, 2 damage to the Alliance Dispatcher. Very strong start, right? This is kind of the ideal start for Luke. The turn 1 ground unit into turn 2 space unit that we could not actually straight up kill. That's really important, right? Because of our space unit on turn 1 not being a 3-powered. Because if we did have a 3-power unit, then we would have been able to kill the Sabine's Masterpiece, which would have been totally fine. It's one of the reasons why I don't think Sabine's Masterpiece is all that great. However, because they had that situation, and then they had the Bright Hope, right? The Sentinel in space. This definitely was a strong start for our opponents. And I think they probably would have been significantly more advantaged in this game had they gotten an experience token on their Bright Hope, or even the Sabine's Masterpiece. It would have been much, much better for them. So on to the next one. Into our next game, we got ourselves a game against Han Green, which is going to be a fun one. I accidentally resourced the wrong card here, actually. I meant to resource this Rich Reward over the TIE Vanguard, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Millennium Falcon comes down. They get to knock out our TIE Silencer. That's totally fine. I mean, we kind of expected as much from the good old deck of choice from our opponents. Here, we're going to go with their space units. They're going to go ahead and play their space units. We get to put down 2 space units. So if they go Millennium Falcon here again, that's totally fine. Because we can go ahead and Tarkin it away. Obviously, this deck, the Han Green list, is something that is not exactly extremely great for us to see on our side of the battlefield, right? Because they could do something like that, which is constantly ambush our units and take care of them with all these space strategies that they've got. Blue Leader, Millennium Falcon, that type of stuff. And they've kind of had the perfect start to deal with the Vader deck. So good on them. They're going to go ahead and use that Han Solo ability here. Let's see what they've got. They can go ahead and not quite deploy Han, but they can get close to getting something down. Plo Koon, not really. Oh, resupply will get you there for sure. Let's go Kajimi Patrollers. Let's go ahead and create a TIE Fighter token. And let's go ahead and play this as a pilot down. And that's a lot of space units, right? That's a ton of space units that was just generated. Now, we don't actually have Waylay, huh? Sure, I think that's actually super advantageous towards us. Because my opponent just gave us, realistically, a little bit more things to do on this turn, which is quite nice. I will go ahead and get in with that TIE Vanguard immediately. Now, they could have something here that's pretty good to play, especially because they're going to be on 6 resources. They're going to have multiple cards in their hand. They could absolutely play like a Millennium Falcon here, which is going to be a pretty good situation for them. Let's go ahead and get down to TIE Fighter just to see what our opponent has. They could have an Enfys Nest. Looks like they've got a Marauder, so that's going to be pretty strong for sure. And now we get to go Victor Leader, and then probably kill the Marauder here. And then we're going to go Kajimi Patrollers, attack the Marauder, get that down, pass, double Rich Reward, and a Victor 3. I mean, we're going to resource one of these Rich Rewards. And this is where I say Rich Reward can be a little bit awkward. Like, if we actually had the resources to get it down last turn with the Victor 3 and the Kajimi Patrollers, it actually would have been pretty good. But because we didn't find ourselves in that position, well, we couldn't. Let's go ahead and pilot onto the Victor Leader. And that's going to make it a gigantic space unit to guarantee itself keeping alive. Well, not guarantee, but most likely going to be staying alive. And that's going to give us a pretty big advantage. Victor 3 is also going to give us a little bit of experience. And now we are in a much better position for sure, but our opponent's still smacking us with a Han Solo. They've got themselves a tech coming down. We are going to actually pilot onto a TIE Vanguard here and give our Kajimi Patrollers the experience. And let's see what they can do with this smuggle, right? I mean, they can go ahead and tech, but it doesn't, or a DJ, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, I'm not really worried about that. Stealing a resource does basically nothing in this spot. So they're welcome to go ahead and tech DJ us. They've got a blue leader in this spot. They can ambush and then move it to the ground arena, which I think is what they should be doing. Ooh, no, I don't necessarily agree with that play. I think our opponent should have ambushed one of these tokens and then made it into a 5/5 is what they should have done. Because if they had done that, and I'll just go ahead and play Rich Reward on tech. If they had done that, then they would have been in a spot where they could have actually raced us. And now it's significantly less likely for them to actually have the damage. Hotshot Blaster, I mean, look at that. If they had a 5-powered attacker, right, we would have been in trouble because we would have had to get in 2 more attacks and they would have been able to go attack, finish the game. And I think that was a misplay from our opponent's part because I think we should have been losing this game in that position, especially with the early game start that our opponent had. So just based on kind of what happened, I definitely could have made a mistake as well. No doubt about it. They even had a second Hotshot Blaster. So yeah, 1000% had they gone. Now, granted, I would have had a 4-powered attacker, but that still wouldn't have been enough, right? We would have been 2 damage, or rather 1 damage away from actually closing out the game. And so our opponent would have actually taken the win. So definitely a misplay from them, at least on that specific card, right? Just killing a token and then moving into the ground arena would have been the play. Into our next game, and unfortunately for us, we are in the VADER mirror, but our opponent has initiative, which means I'm going to try to mulligan to find myself a 1 resource plus potentially another 1 resource play. Now, we almost got there with this first order TIE Fighter, but unfortunately we didn't quite. And so we're going to just resource a couple of pilots and the Ruthlessness and hope our opponent doesn't have... Ooh, they've got Wingman Victor 2, which is a really good sign for us. Because that means they will not be able to start generating space units for their side of the battlefield, but we have a good chance of just kind of dominating this game at this point. Double Overwhelming Barrage and double Victor 3 is not what I want to be seeing realistically at this stage of the game, and I hope my opponent doesn't have any sort of ambushers. And because they went with the immediate attack with the Victor 2, I think our opponent's not going to have anything to deal with this TIE Silencer. So I'm actually okay with just deploying another unit and then getting the value out of Victor 3 by getting in an attack with it and then using my VADER action. So I'm going to go full value here. They do have that lurking TIE Phantom, and this actually works perfectly because we can deploy the pilot onto the silencer, which actually kills the lurking TIE Phantom and allows us to generate a TIE Fighter token. So that actually worked out literally perfectly. It literally could not have gone better. Resource one of the overwhelming barrages to actually give us access to more space units. And my opponents, if they play another space unit here, I am 100% just getting in with these space units to kill it, right? Just absolutely dominating the space arena is what you want to do against the Vader decks. So they're going to go ahead and claim initiative. That's fine. We're going to create a TIE Fighter token and drop a bunch of space units in. And also, one of the reasons why I'd be doing this is because my opponent is going to get overwhelming barraged here. Now, they can overwhelming barrage themselves and knock out a significant portion of my space force, right? If let's say they do it here, they can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be kind of a nightmare. But then we can go ahead and go overwhelming barrage and knock out their entire ground force. So we would still be advantaged because we could still generate additional units. Now, we're going to go overwhelming barrage and just knock out their units here. 1 damage to the battle droid, 4 damage to the victor. And that's going to put us in a great position. They're going to waylay, huh? That is totally fine with us, to be honest. Yeah, we don't get an attack, but yeah, we absolutely can just go ahead and trade off and kill their unit. And now they have no unit to pilot onto, right? Get in all of our damage, create a TIE Fighter pass. We've got a TIE advance, another overwhelming barrage. I'm going to go ahead and resource this TIE Fighter. And we'll see where we're going to find ourselves. We're going to go kill their TIE Fighter with our token. We don't want them space uniting onto whatever, or piloting onto whatever space unit they could potentially have. So let's go ahead and just kill whatever unit they do have. They've got a triple dark raid onto that 7th fleet. Let's go ahead and get in an attack here for 1. Let's see if they decide to pilot onto the ground. Ooh, onto the 7th fleet. Okay, so what we're going to do here is get in for 1 just to see what they're going to do with this 7th fleet defender. Are they going to hit the base? If they do, that's totally fine because now we deploy onto our token here. I should have made a token, actually. That was a mistake. And then we can go ahead and get in for 6. And then we just overwhelming barrage on this. Take care of both of their tokens. And then this thing is going to bounce back to their hand, which means Vader's going to go back into the resource zone or into the leader zone. So we have nothing to worry about here, right? Vader's going to be gone. They have no immediate attackers. Unless they triple dark raid into something insane, they couldn't even actually hit us. And we have a one-shot kill here. So we didn't even use Target Town, but this was a classic story of, even though they had initiative, they start with a ground unit. And if you aren't able to start that constant, hey, I have another space unit, I have another space unit, I have another space unit, to generate a huge board, Vader's value just goes so far down. And you saw there, I don't think they used Vader's action a single time that whole game. And that just put us in a driving seat the whole game. The whole game. Now, triple dark raid is extremely strong, and there is merit to going with the cunning setup. But, I mean, we were just able to flood the board. We were just able to constantly flood the board. Into our next matchup, we find ourselves in probably one of the hardest matchups for our deck, honestly, and that is Asajj, because if they have space units, then it is going to be an absolute nightmare for us to honestly go ahead and do anything. And in fact, they went with do nothing, pass. And so we're just going to claim initiative, and I'm going to pass back because I do not want them to be able to go ahead and really stick anything on the board if I can avoid it. I'm going to go with the Victor leader here. And they could go ahead and deal damage to their Inferno 4 to deal 1 damage to our Victor leader. But the reason why I can't play anything there is if I go with a TIE Fighter, they go Inferno 4, I can Daring Raid, and we'll end up with me losing 2 cards, them losing 1, still setting it with Inferno 4. It's just horrible. It's just a horrible position. So cannot do that. The TIE Advance could come in handy here with a trigger onto the Victor leader. Now, they can go ahead and use this on their Super Laser Technician, which wouldn't be too bad here. Let's go TIE Advance pumping up this Victor leader. They say gross. We're going to get an attack in, most likely, and be able to generate something with this Darth Vader. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't hit one of my space units with the super laser technician. So okay, they're saying that you can't avoid it. So we're just gonna play with it as we're gonna play with it as a little bit bugged here. That's totally fine. Carabast, guys. Sometimes they're not properly coded. It looks like Asajj isn't quite there yet. Isn't quite there yet. We're going to go ahead and get in an attack with the Inferno 4, or into the Inferno 4 just to remove it from the battlefield. They get to go ahead and play some sort of 2-resource play potentially, but we don't really want Asajj to come down as a pilot, because she's actually a reasonably strong pilot if she's got that damage stacking. Can actually end the game very quickly, but also we will have an overwhelming barrage on the following turn, which is going to be pretty nice. So let's go ahead and pass here. They're going to get up 6 resources, which means they can go ahead and get down the Asajj and get pumped up on this, what's it called? The, oh, I shouldn't have resourced the Disabling Fang Fighter. I don't know what I'm thinking here. Let's go Overwhelming Barrage on the Victor Leader, hit the Clan Saxon Gauntlet, hit 5 there, 1 on the Seasoned Shore Trooper. That's going to be able to be Tarkin Town away. I should have generated a space unit there with my Vader trigger. Oh, I already did. What am I talking about? I'm literally just trolling, guys. I'm just so trolling. What is going on? They're going to be able to deploy Asajj should they wish to do so, but I don't think they will. Overwhelming Barrage just worked excellently here. Next turn, we can go with the triple 1-drop plus a 3-drop play if we end up drawing it. They can go ahead and activate Asajj, which is totally fine. This is a 4-6 grit. I mean, that's what it is, right? We're going to outrace that pretty quickly with what we got on the board already. Let's go ahead and deploy another TIE Fighter. And look at that. I mean, we have the potential for 1-drop, 1-drop, 2-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop, which I think we actually want to go for, right? Traitorous away. Very nice, honestly. That is probably one of the strongest options that they had. Now, we're going to go ahead and deploy this. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to pilot this onto the TIE Advanced. So they're going to be able to go ahead and attack into the base, which is pretty good. But we still happen to have a pretty nice curve of our own. We get to go ahead and get in an attack for 8 here. We've got an attack in, what do we want to do? We go 2 damage here, Daring Raid here, attack in, Daring Raid here, Kajimi Patrollers, TIE Fighter, and that was a lot of plays in a single turn. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Jeez. Traitorous is absolutely absurd, by the way, against a deck like this with pilots going around and everything like that. So probably the best play they could have made. They say so close. Ooh, they have a Snoke. I did not expect the Snoke, to be honest. Their deck is, Asajj is one of those matchups where, especially with their build, my goodness, was it a tough matchup for us because of that 1 damage. Now, they can and will be susceptible to Tarkin Town, but because we so rely on our early game start of the engine of creating a bunch of TIE Fighter tokens, and they're playing the Traitorous, and they have the board wipes with Snoke, it's actually a really tough matchup, surprisingly. And so, pretty interesting stuff. We ended up getting there. On to the next one. Into our next game, we got ourselves a Cad Bane matchup, and I actually don't mind this hand at all. I'm going to resource this Victor 3 and the Mercenary Gunship, and I will pass on the first action of the game because I really cannot be playing TIE Fighters into the Cad Bane. It's just way too horrible. They're probably just going to pass. Oh, they're not going to. Interesting. Huh. I did not expect this. I'm just going to claim initiative. It feels a little bit awkward to do that. But I can't really be risking one of our few TIE fighters here. Let's go ahead and pass here once again just to see what my opponent's going to be doing. Let's go ahead and pass again. This matchup is also very tough. They've got Zygerian Starhopper. Okay, let's go ahead and just Daring Raid that. And then we will follow that up with the Tarkin Town to clear out the space arena here. See what my opponent's got. Are they going to pass? Are they going to claim initiative? What do you got, opponent? They're going to pass. Okay, we're going to Tarkin Town away. It's going to be dealt all to my base. Sure. Do they have another 1-cost unit? They could have another Greedo, I suppose. Okay, we're going to go TIE Fighter. If they have another Greedo, that's fine. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as to why they would be passing if they didn't have that. Or maybe they have a Daring Raid, which is very possible. Daring Raid would really kind of screw up what the plan is. Or McClunky would also, I guess, be another option. Okay, we got a Rich Reward, which actually does look okay. But we already have Victor 3, which is basically Rich Reward. They can go ahead and play any Underworld units here, which would be pretty strong. But I think we're going to go with Victor Leader immediately so that we can avoid just losing our units to the 1 damage pings of Cad Bane. And I don't really know of any ambushing space unit that the Cad Bane decks will be playing. They could absolutely go ahead and play McClunky and make it so that they could kill off essentially 2 units here. But we'll see what they decide to do. Are you going to use the Cad Bane trigger? Waiting for my opponent. Waiting. Wow. That's what they decided to go with? I'm a little bit surprised. That's fine. We'll just get in for 3 here. They can go and Tarkin Town away the Victor Leader. We will still be able to create a TIE Fighter token, and then we can Daring Raid something, or we can just play the Victor 3 as a pilot onto the TIE Fighter. And we still ended up using more resources than them, which is pretty nice. Daring Raid looks pretty good still, to be honest. I would prefer if I can get this TIE Silencer down after I get an attack with the TIE Fighter. But this is definitely a tricky matchup. Definitely advantaged to my opponent in this situation. Just having a lot of 1 toughness units is really tough for us, right? Just really tough. They have a Zuckuss. Ooh, Zuckuss is going to be pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie, guys. Zuckuss is quite the brutality. Let's go ahead and deploy another TIE Fighter here. Let's go ahead and get in. We're going to Daring Raid their Greedo. We're going to play a Silencer, and we're going to pass. Grabbed ourselves. Not exactly what I wanted to see. I was really hoping for an overwhelming barrage so that we could use it with the Vader, which would have been really nice, but that's not quite what we got. We ended up getting just a 2-3, right? Because we have to deploy Vader this turn. And that means that we are in a really tough position, because if they attack and then just get down everything, it is going to be basically impossible for us to win at that point. Surprise strike in for 7. We'll get in for 8. Surprise strike in for 9, and that's going to be GG. So really strong ending there for our opponent. I was thinking like they had Daring Raid, McClunky, or something of that nature for that 1 resource, which is what was tricky about it. The Zygerian Starhopper definitely threw a wrench in the plan, because they were able to go ahead and have that space unit to contend, which we kind of had to deal with. But then also, we are in a situation where if we play a space unit that's not like a 3 toughness unit, they can potentially go, trigger, second turn trigger, and then we are in a little bit of trouble because it's just going to die, which is a little bit tricky. So definitely a tough matchup in a situation where you have a lot of one toughness units, and against the Tarkin Town matchup, which is really going to devastate our early game units. So pretty sweet one though, and I think we got pretty close, right? When Vader comes down, it does go ahead and pack a punch, right? +5 damage is quite a lot. If they didn't have, let's say, the Zuckuss previous turn, and they had just something with a little bit less power, and of course, this is a lot of what-ifs, right? And they didn't have the double surprise strike, there is a chance where, we attack with this, and then that puts them at 19, and then we can just take initiative and then kill them with another swing, right? Because they were able to save actions with a surprise strike and get in damage, and they had a high powered unit, single attacker, right? With that didn't require a lot of actions, it did go ahead and close out the game, but it was actually closer than I thought it would be, which is nice. All right, so what do we learn with VADER? Well, he is definitely one of the more fun leaders. He is going to give you these board states similar to how Rex Green played when set 3 came out, where we're just flooding the board or we're doing these Akbar things. You get so many tokens out with VADER that is really fun to look at. I do think Target Town is a really awesome addition because it does help you kind of navigate that early game, especially with a bunch of units that are going to basically just die straight up. It gives you that leg up to where you can actually maintain control of the space arena. I will say we have a lot of awkward cards in this particular list. It's because we're going all in on the space strategy. You could go like a mix, and you could be playing like super laser technicians and things like that. I didn't find that particularly strong. And so what we have here are cards like Ruthlessness or Rich Reward or Dengar to some extent, Disabling Fang Fighter, which are just kind of in there because it's good in the meta. These types of cards where aren't particularly amazing, right? They don't like specifically work with a strategy. It's just like, okay, I have a lot of units, so giving out 2 experience tokens can happen. Ruthlessness is a way to give, like, it's essentially a surprise strike to one of our space units that sticks around, right? That type of effect. I would have much preferred to have some stronger early space units. I think this is where, if we were a heroism deck, I think Darth Vader could definitely be a little bit better in terms of just being able to curve out, especially if you had things like A wings and Y wings and all that type of stuff to play on turn 1s that were going to be 3/3 attackers. And that's really important because a lot of our units that are good attackers, like the Silencer and Mercenary Gunship, have 2 toughness. And that's a big difference in a lot of matchups. And so that is something to consider, especially considering that a lot of our pilots and our other units like TIE Vanguard, the 2 Victor 2 and Victor 3, the Victor Leader would push those units into 4 toughness, which is something that avoids like blue leaders, the 3/3 ambushers, or the 3 damage Tarkin Town, potentially, which can do some work, or even like something as simple as daring raids or anything like that. It could push it out of range in some cases if we stack enough of that type of stuff. And that's what the heroism decks are really good at. So while we do have some powerful effects, like Overwhelming Barrage is obviously still insane, we do have a powerful action here. It's just that the makeup of the deck is just a little bit weaker than I think I would like. And although we were able to pull out some wins with some massive swarming of space units, I do find that I would like to see just a few more space units before I really am hyped about the VADER. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.